All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're not just going to solve quadratic equations, we're going to build a strategic toolkit. I want you to think of it less like a random math problem and more like you're a pro, and you have to pick the absolute best tool for the job to get it done right.
So, have you ever stared at one of these equations, the whole ax squared plus bx plus c thing, and your brain just kind of freezes up? If that sounds familiar, trust me, you are so not alone. It's a super common hurdle, and our whole goal here is to swap that feeling of being stuck for some real confidence.
And wow, look at this list. It's like a minefield of little tripwires, right? We're not going to go through every single one, but just notice how many of them are tiny little details. Things like simple sign errors, or you do all this brilliant factoring and then you just forget to set each piece to zero. It's heartbreaking, but it just goes to show you the challenge isn't always the big, scary concept. A lot of the time, it's about nailing those small details.
Okay, so let's pop open that toolkit. And the first tool we're going to pull out is factoring. I like to call this the quick and clever wrench, because for the right kind of problem, there is absolutely nothing faster or more elegant.
But why does factoring even work? What's the magic here? Well, it all boils down to this one simple, beautiful idea, the zero products property. I mean, think about it. If you multiply two things together and the answer is zero, one of those things has to be zero. There's just no other way. And that right there is the secret sauce that lets us break a big, messy quadratic into two tiny, easy-to-solve equations.
I love this analogy. When you expand factors, multiplying two binomials together, it's like baking a cake. You're mixing all the ingredients and you get a final product. Factoring is the reverse. It's like you're a detective. You're given the finished cake and you have to work backward to figure out exactly what the original ingredients were. It's a puzzle for sure, but man, it's a powerful skill.
And for those really tricky quadratics, the ones where that a value isn't just a 1, well, there's a system for that. It's called factoring by grouping. This means you're not just guessing randomly. You follow a process. You find two magic numbers, you use them to split up the middle term, and then you factor in pairs. It turns a guessing game into a clear step-by-step method.
So why even bother learning to factor well? What's the big payoff? It's really two things: speed and accuracy. When it works, factoring is almost always faster, and the calculations are way simpler. That means there are just fewer places for those little arithmetic bugs to creep in and mess up your answer. But let's be real. Sometimes that clever little wrench just isn't going to cut it. The bolt is rusted shut. That's when you've got to break out the power tools. These are for the equations where factoring is either a huge pain or just flat out impossible. And here it is, the big one, the quadratic formula. This is your heavy-duty, guaranteed to work, industrial strength power tool. It doesn't care how messy the numbers are or whether the answers are nice integers, fractions, or even imaginary numbers. This formula will solve any quadratic you throw at it, every single time. So let's compare our two main power tools. You've got completing the square. Now this one's a bit more hands-on, algebraically intensive, but it has this really awesome side effect. It directly tells you the vertex or the turning point of the parabola. Super useful. Then you have the quadratic formula. It's just a pure algorithm. Plug in the numbers, chug out the answer. It's totally reliable. But as we saw, you have to be so careful with all your little pluses and minuses. Okay, so we've got our tools laid out on the workbench, but just having the tools isn't enough. The real skill, what separates the amateur from the pro, is knowing exactly which tool to grab for which job. This is all about working smarter, not harder. And that brings us to the million-dollar question, doesn't it? You're looking at a quadratic equation. Maybe the clock is ticking on a test. How do you decide? Do you try to factor? Do you immediately jump to the big formula? What's the most efficient path to the correct answer? Well, the first part of our strategy is incredibly simple. It's a little rule of thumb, and it's all about time. We call it the 60-second rule. When you see an equation, give factoring an honest try, especially if the numbers look manageable. But here's the key. Don't get sucked into a black hole of trying endless combinations. If you haven't found the factors in about a minute, just stop. That's your signal to switch gears and grab a power tool, like the quadratic formula. This chart right here, this is your game plan. Consider this your cheat sheet. If the coefficients are small and simple, always try factoring first. It's just faster. If that constant C term is missing altogether, oh, that's a freebie. That's the easiest win you can get. Just factor out an X. But for everything else, we're talking big, ugly numbers, or the second you hit that 60-second wall on factoring, just go straight for the quadratic formula. It's your guaranteed safety net. And here's a real pro tip that can make you even faster. Before you even start trying to factor, take a quick peek at the discriminant. That's the b squared minus 4ac part from under the square root. If you calculate that and it's a negative number, stop. That means you have imaginary roots, and you are never going to find those by factoring integers, so don't even try. Go directly to the quadratic formula.
So, we've built our toolkit, we've got our strategy. But you might still be wondering, okay, why does this all matter? Is this really about anything more than just passing my next algebra test? The answer is a definite yes.
This quote from an engineer really hits the nail on the head. Learning to factor well isn't just about quadratics. It's a foundational skill for pretty much all higher-level math. When you get into calculus, being able to factor an expression first can literally be the difference between a problem that takes 30 seconds and one that feels completely impossible. Think about what factoring really is. It's the skill of breaking down a big, complex problem into simpler, more manageable parts. That skill is useful everywhere. It's how you solve even harder equations, like cubics. And what's really fascinating is that it's the exact same kind of thinking that software engineers use to build huge programs, looking for common pieces they can factor out into reusable code. It's a way of thinking.
So the real takeaway here isn't just about finding x. It's about developing a strategic mind. Every single time you look at a quadratic and make that conscious choice, okay, I'll factor this one, or nope, time for the formula, you are training your brain to analyze, strategize, and solve problems efficiently. This isn't just a math toolkit. It's a problem-solving toolkit that you'll use for years to come.